What kind of king kills his own son and then goes back to ruling like nothing happened? Ivan IV was born in 1530 into a Russia riddled with intrigue, power struggles, and danger. From the moment he entered the world, he was surrounded by nobles and advisors who plotted, schemed, and maneuvered for control. His father, Grand Prince Vasily III, died when Ivan was only 3, leaving the boy orphaned in a palace where every smile could hide betrayal. His mother, struggling to protect him, eventually fell victim to the deadly politics of the court, leaving Ivan alone and exposed. From an early age, he witnessed cruelty, violence, and manipulation. Every day was a lesson in fear. The boyars, ambitious and ruthless, sought to control the young prince, often resorting to psychological torment, humiliation, and even physical abuse. These experiences planted the seeds of paranoia in his mind, teaching him that love and loyalty were fragile and fleeting. As he grew, Ivan became obsessed with the idea that power was inseparable from fear. He learned that survival required ruthless vigilance and that betrayal could come from the closest allies. The early traumas of his childhood forged a complex personality, brilliant, calculating, and yet consumed by suspicion. By the time he ascended to the throne at 16, Ivan was no longer a child, but a young man molded by suffering and fear. He understood the delicate balance of power and the fragility of human trust, and he was ready to reshape Russia in his image. If you find the origins of Ivan's terror shocking, pause for a moment and imagine how childhood trauma could twist the mind of a ruler. Stay tuned to see how fear became a weapon in his hands. At 16, Ivan IV was crowned the first Tsar of all Russia, a title he embraced with a mixture of ambition and destiny. The early years of his reign were marked by reforms and expansion. Ivan sought to centralize power, reduce the influence of the boyars, and modernize administration. Laws were codified, taxes streamlined, and the army reorganized. Yet alongside these achievements, a darker side emerged. Ivan distrusted the nobility intensely, seeing enemies in every gesture. To assert control, he created the oprichniki, a private force loyal only to him, tasked with rooting out treachery and enforcing his will. The oprichniki became infamous for brutality, carrying out public executions, seizing lands, and terrorizing the population. Ivan's paranoia intensified, convincing him that loyalty was temporary and betrayal was inevitable. Advisors, courtiers, and even family members could be executed on a whim. Yet despite this terror, Ivan was remarkably intelligent and strategic. He expanded Russian territory, strengthened the central government, and left an indelible mark on the state. His reign demonstrates the paradox of a ruler capable of genius yet consumed by cruelty. At this stage, consider how power can amplify paranoia. Ask yourself, could fear ever justify tyranny? Make sure to watch closely as Ivan's methods become even more extreme. As Ivan's paranoia grew, so did the power of the oprichniki. This elite group of enforcers terrorized Moscow and beyond, carrying out arrests, torture, and executions without warning. Nobles vanished overnight, sometimes only leaving whispers of their fate. Public executions became spectacles, meant to instill fear and maintain obedience. Even ordinary citizens lived under constant dread. Families were torn apart, and whispers of Ivan's brutality spread across the land. The oprichnike's presence transformed Russia into a nation of suspicion, where every glance or word could mean death. Ivan's cruelty was not limited to strangers or enemies. It extended deeply into his personal life. He killed his own son in a fit of rage, demonstrating that not even blood relations were immune from his wrath. Several of his wives also suffered violent ends, caught in his web of paranoia. The terror of his reign was complete. Despite these horrors, Ivan was effective in maintaining authority and order, showing that fear could consolidate power as efficiently as respect. Pause for a moment to reflect on how one ruler's insecurity can devastate an entire nation. If this chapter horrifies you, stay with us, because what comes next reveals even darker depths of Ivan's personality. Behind the titles and conquests, Ivan's life was lonely and tragic. His relationships were marred by suspicion, fear, and grief. The murder of his son was only the most visible example of the personal cost of his paranoia. He loved no one freely and trusted no one completely. His anger and impulses dictated the fate of those closest to him, leaving a trail of broken families and shattered loyalty. Even advisors who served him faithfully were not safe from his suspicion. Ivan's reign illustrates how absolute power, combined with unresolved trauma, can warp human behavior. He wielded fear as a tool, but it isolated him and intensified his inner torment. The Russian people, while obeying, suffered the psychological weight of living under constant threat. Ivan's story is a reminder that tyranny is not just a political phenomenon, but a deeply personal one, where the ruler's inner fears echo outward to the lives of millions. Think about this for a moment. The same mind that creates a powerful empire can also destroy what it loves most. As we continue, the next chapter reveals the terrifying acts that cemented his infamous legacy. Ivan's reign was punctuated by acts so brutal that they still shock historians today. Towns were burned, nobles executed, and countless innocents were caught in the crossfire of his paranoia. Families lived in fear of sudden arrest or public humiliation. The Obrignaike's brutality ensured that resistance was nearly impossible. Ivan's methods were sometimes impulsive, other times calculated, but always cruel. Even his expansionist campaigns, while politically successful, came with staggering human costs. The combination of military conquest and internal terror made him both powerful and feared, a ruler whose name inspired dread across Europe. Yet, paradoxically, Ivan also sought to strengthen Russia, modernize governance, and consolidate territory. This duality makes him one of history's most enigmatic figures, a ruler who achieved greatness through fear, but left devastation in his wake. Reflect on this complexity. Could a leader be brilliant yet monstrous? If this chapter intrigues you, get ready for the final chapter, where we examine the lasting impact of Ivan's reign on Russia and history itself. Ivan the Terrible died in 1584, leaving a nation transformed by his reign. His legacy is a mixture of brilliance and horror. He centralized power, strengthened the Russian state, and expanded its borders. Yet his rule is remembered for fear, blood, and suffering. Families were destroyed, trust was impossible, and loyalty was maintained only through terror. Historians debate what drove Ivan's cruelty, pointing to childhood trauma, paranoia, and the immense pressures of ruling a vast nation. Whatever the cause, his actions demonstrate how personal fear can translate into systemic oppression. Ivan's life remains a cautionary tale of unchecked power and the human cost of tyranny. He reshaped Russia, but at a devastating price. As we reflect on his reign, remember the lesson of Ivan the Terrible. The pursuit of power without compassion or morality can leave a legacy stained with blood. If you found this story compelling, share it with others. Explore more about history's most feared rulers, and never forget how fear can shape a nation.